Hello and welcome to another video about TERA. In this one I will tell you how I play Sorcerer. I do decent DPS on this class, but I'm sure there's still a little bit of room for improvement. Nonetheless, if you're new to Sorcerer, this video should help you get into it. Sorcerer is a ranged class. However, that doesn't mean you should stay far away from the boss. Instead, you should consider Sorcerer more like a mid-ranged class similar to Reaper. Most of the time, you should stay quite close, since this will allow you to move around bosses that turn a lot, but it will also guarantee that your skills can reach the target. For example, the skill called Nova has a 12 meter range, and one of the Apex fusions only has a range of 7 meters. It may seem a bit strange to stay close to the boss while wearing cloth armor, however Sorcerer is actually tougher than you'd think. Besides that, Sorcerer also has a lot of iframes and a couple of skills that reduce damage taken. Due to the amount of options this class has for iframing, new players might get confused about what they should use. The Sorcerer's best friend is Warp Barrier. Using this skill gives your character a shield that lasts for a few seconds and negates all damage. It works on most of the iframeable mechanics, but also on some that cannot be iframed, such as the side swipes on the first boss in Akalaf Quarantine, for example. There are also some mechanics that cannot be avoided using Warp Barrier and have to be iframed, such as the hunting mechanic on the second boss in Akalaf Quarantine. One of the first things you should learn about a new dungeon is which mechanics you can avoid using Warp Barrier. Timing this skill is really easy, and often you can just use it in between other skills and just keep attacking. In the same situation, Backstab often delays your attacks more since you have to time it more precisely. Stone Skin works the same as Warp Barrier, but it lasts longer and doesn't allow you to move or use skills while it's active. However, you can deactivate it manually before the time limit is reached, and your character loses aggro the moment you use it. Use this skill in emergency situations only, or if you need to lose aggro. If Warp Barrier is on cooldown, or a mechanic is coming up that cannot be avoided using Warp Barrier, then Backstab is the next skill you should think about. The length of this iframe is reasonable, so timing it is relatively easy as well. However, using Backstab often forces you to stop attacking for a bit longer than Warp Barrier, since the timing has to be more on point. Teleport Jaunt is an iframe as well. Timing this one correctly is a bit more difficult than Backstab. However, it moves you further away. In some cases you can use Teleport Jaunt to get through mechanics that cannot be iframed, since your character technically never exists anywhere between the point where you use the skill and where you land after using it. If you remember the dungeon called Thor Metal Refinery, you probably also remember the spinning lasers on the second boss. Teleport Jaunt could be used to teleport through the wrong color laser without taking any damage. Besides the 4 iframes I just mentioned, there are also 2 skills you can use to reduce damage taken. The first one is Mana Barrier. It gives you a shield that absorbs a certain amount of damage for a limited amount of time. Most of the time there is no need to use this skill, however it will come in handy in some situations. Lastly, we have the attack skill called Nova. While you're casting this one, you only take half the damage from mechanics. Sorcerer is a magic class, of course, and thus it needs a gear set with magic amplification. So once you reach level 69, you should buy a set of Darklight gear at the broker. If you'd like to get gear with additional stats, you should be looking for magic amplification, power or MP. However, crit power or magical crit power is fine as well. One of the recent patches added a passive stat to the class which increases damage of certain skills in proportion to your maximum amount of MP, which is why MP is a nice stat to have. The crit factor you should be aiming for depends on which dungeon you're running and whether you have a priest or a mystic as healer. For lower level dungeons such as Red Refuge and RK9, a crit factor of around 220 to 260 is fine. However, for dungeons like Corrupted Skynest Normal Mode for example, you'll need a crit factor of around 280 to 320. Once you reach that value, you should start stacking as much power as you possibly can. For weapon and glove etchings, it's best to use energetic ones though, rather than power. But for accessory etchings, you should use power, or crit factor if needed. Like on any DPS or tank class, you should max out the Mighty Attack enhancement in the Strengthen Offense tab. It will give your character an additional 23 power, which is a significant amount. The other enhancement you should max out in the Strengthen Offense tab is Amplification for mana boost. When maxed out, it says damage increases by 11.5% when activated with Burst of Celerity. Burst of Celerity is a passive sorcerer skill that seems to be active at all times. The rest of the enhancements in the Strengthen Offense tab are not worth investing in at all. In the Speed Increase tab, you should max out the Velocity enhancement for Nova, which speeds up casting for this skill. If you still have EP left to spend and you don't know where to put them, you can also invest a couple into Combat Dash for Hailstorm and Agile Phoenix, though maxing these out is not worth it. In the Resource Recovery tab, there are 3 enhancements you should max out. They are Propulsion for Lightning Strike, Reload for Void Pulse, and Reload for Hailstorm. All 3 of these enhancements reduce cooldowns of skills. The Propulsion enhancement says that it reduces cooldown for Mana Burst, however this is a mistake since Mana Burst is not a sorcerer skill. According to what I found after googling for a little bit, it actually reduces the cooldown of Nova every time you land a critical hit using Lightning Strike. If you still have some points left to spend, you can invest them into Turning Tables for Retaliate. The last skill you should max out is Mighty Defense in the Defense tab. If you're good at surviving, you can invest these points into some more offensive enhancements though. The reason why I spent the points here is because the offensive enhancements that I haven't mentioned so far are not very efficient for increasing DPS. As far as I know, investing into EP attack damage will not give a significant increase in DPS, so improving endurance instead seems like a better idea. I invested some points into EP damage as well though, since there are not too many important enhancements on this class, but I did not notice a significant damage increase from the skills after investing into EP attack power, which is consistent with the results other people got when trying this out. Investing into Mighty Phoenix in the Defense tab might be a good idea as well, since this will make it easier to survive right after you resurrect. If you use Mana Barrier a lot, you can also invest some points into Amplification for that skill. However, usually you can play Sorcerer well without using the Mana Barrier at all. The level 66 and 68 advancement skills on Sorcerer both increase your character's power. Just like on any other class, you should aim to eventually max out the level 66, 68 and 70 skill advancements. For the level 67 and 69 advancements, you have 3 choices each. If you mostly run dungeons, you'll only need to get one of those options, but make sure it's activated after you board it. For the level 67 skill, which influences Hailstorm, I chose the advancement in the middle, called Cold Wave. It reduces the endurance of monsters by 3% for 20 seconds and can stack up to 3 times. The reason why I chose this one, rather than Glacial Explosion, which removes the damage over time effect and deals all the damage instantly, is that I use Hailstorm to gain the ice element automatically while the skill remains. Obviously, the stun effect won't work on boss monsters, but the reduced endurance should also increase DPS for you and your party. The level 69 advancement influences mana boost. The only option that increases damage is the one on the left, which is called Mysterious. It grants all 3 elements as soon as you use mana boost, meaning you can use triple fusion right away. But it also increases mana boost duration by 20%. For your PvE glyph setup, you should spend the points on the most important skills. It is not worth spending any on Fireball, Frost Sphere or Lightning Trap. For Arcane Pulse, you absolutely need everything besides the one called Power Link Arcane Pulse. However, you can also use that one if you still have points left at the end. Don't spend any points on Mana Infusion, but get all the glyphs for Meteor Strike. Backstab, Flame Pillar and Mana Barrier are not worth investing into. Lightning Strike, on the other hand, is one of your most important skills. Grab the Carving and the Persistent Lightning Strike glyphs. I also used the glyph to reduce MP consumption for Lightning Strike, since I still had 2 points left and didn't know where else to put them. If you're lucky, you can spam Lightning Strike a bunch of times in a row. So if you use reduced MP cost on any skill, then this is the one where it makes most sense. For Void Pulse, you should get both glyphs. The next skill in the list which you should glyph are Teleport Jaunt and Hailstorm. They have 1 glyph each, and both are worth using. Stone Skin is a nice skill, but it's not worth investing in reduced cooldown for that one, especially since Warp Barrier works the same way, except it doesn't last as long and has a very short cooldown. Make sure you grab all the glyphs for Nova, Warp Barrier and Mana Boost though. The Apex glyph is important as well, so make sure to use that one too. Most classes in TERA have a certain rotation you need to follow if you want to maximize your DPS. This is because the skills either boost damage of other skills, or they make other skills cast quicker. On Sorcerer there isn't really a fixed rotation though. Instead, you try to maximize the amount of Apex fusions you can do, while using your priority skills. As you may know, each class in TERA has a burn skill, which increases damage significantly for a limited amount of time. On Sorcerer that skill is called Mana Boost, which is a buff that increases the damage other skills do and allows you to fuse all 3 elements together rather than only 2. Mana Boost has a relatively short cooldown, so make sure you use it whenever it's available. Whether Mana Boost is active or not, there are 2 attack skills which you should spam whenever they come off cooldown. Those are your 2 main ice skills called Ice Lance and Hailstorm. Casting Hailstorm doesn't take much time at all, so the damage it does justifies spending that very short moment to cast it. Besides the damage you get from Hailstorm, you also get the ice element constantly as long as Hailstorm remains on the ground. Ice Lance can be cast in parallel with any other skill, so basically you get free damage output every time you use it. Let's look at what to do while Mana Boost is active, and then what to do while it's not. As I said earlier, playing Sorcerer revolves around fusions and priority skills. When talking about advancement skills, I also said that you should grab the one that gives you all 3 elements as soon as you use Mana Boost. So of course you should start your Mana Boost phase with Triple Fusion. For the rest of the Mana Boost duration, your job will be to get all 3 elements as quickly as possible and use Triple Fusion as many times as you possibly can. The way I do this is by alternating between 2 combos. One of those combos I start by casting Meteor Strike to get the flame element, and follow it up with Lightning Strike while Meteor Strike is still casting. For the other combo I use Arcane Pulse and follow it up with Void Pulse to get the flame element. Since I keep casting Ice Lance and Hailstorm as soon as they come off cooldown, I usually don't have to worry about the ice element. But in case I still need it, I just add Frost Sphere to either combo. Sometimes it can happen that Meteor Strike or Void Pulse miss the target, or that you mess up in some other way and didn't get the flame element. In that case you can use Flame Barrage or just the basic Fireball attack to quickly gain the flame element. Similarly, if you are missing the arcane element for whatever reason, usually Lightning Strike will be off cooldown. There is another important skill that I haven't mentioned in this part yet. I'm talking about Nova, of course, which increases your crit factor for a short time. Whenever Nova is off cooldown, you can replace Lightning Strike or Arcane Pulse with this one, as it will give you the arcane element as well. Using the triple fusion will also unlock Implosion. Usually Implosion will be off cooldown every second time you use mana boost. Casting this attack takes a while, however you can iframe out of the casting animation without losing any damage. Basically, as soon as you committed to casting the Implosion, you should start spamming either Backstab or Teleport Jaunt, so you can iframe out of the animation as soon as the game lets you do this. Preferably, you should use Implosion during Enrage, but at the same time you should make sure that you don't miss out on any triple fusions because you spent time casting Implosion. Occasionally you will end up with all three elements ready for a triple fusion, but the fusion skill itself is still on cooldown for another second. This is the perfect opportunity to cast Implosion. It is also a perfect opportunity to cast Nova if it came off cooldown while you were stacking all three elements. The Implosion skill is actually an iframe, and it's the longest iframe sorcerers have. In some cases you can use it to dodge as well, however make sure you don't have to stay in the casting animation for much longer than you usually would. A perfect example for how to use Implosion for iframing is right after starting the fight against Calcaic and Corrupted Skynest. I usually start mana boost during the initial roar, but I keep Implosion off cooldown so I can use it to iframe the first jump. I basically wait until the boss is in the air and then start casting Implosion. This way I will still be locked in animation the moment the boss lands, and I will be able to iframe out right after. If your party has decent DPS, this should happen while the boss is still enraged. There are 3 different fusions you can do while mana boost is not active. Preferably you should know by heart which element combinations will give you a certain fusion. This is one thing I still need to improve, as I'm not usually conscious of which fusion I'm building up to. Due to this, my fusions sometimes miss the target. Fusing Frost and Flame magic leads to the Prime Flame fusion, which is a projectile that damages enemies in a straight line within 27 meter range, and then returns to you, dealing damage for a second time. It replenishes 7.5% MP on each successful hit, and if it hits the target twice, the target will get stunned for 2 seconds. This does not work on boss monsters obviously, except during mechanics that require you to stun the boss in a certain situation. Fusing Flame and Arcane magic leads to the fusion called Arcane Storm. This one is a circle AoE with a 7 meter range. Enemies that are not bosses get knocked back by this attack. It also greatly increases resistance to knockdown and stagger while casting. Furthermore, it replenishes 15% MP on a successful hit. Arcane and Frost magic fuse into an attack called Iceberg. It has an 18 meter range, and the skill description says it travels in the direction of movement of your character. This is not exactly true though. If you stand still, the attack travels in the direction you're aiming at. If you're moving though, it will go off to the side. If you move forward or to the left, the skill will go off to the right, and if you move backwards or to the right, the skill will go off to the left. This feels kind of weird at first, but once you get used to it, it's not that bad. The best thing to do is just stand still for a moment while casting this fusion. This skill also lifts enemies in the air, assuming they are not bosses, and it replenishes 15% MP on a successful hit. As you can see, the 3 fusions behave in different ways, so if you want to get the most out of the class, you should try to be conscious of which fusion you are building up towards at any time. Make sure you keep using Ice Lance, Hailstorm, Lightning Strike and Meteor Strike as much as possible in between fusions, and cast Nova to increase your crit factor temporarily. Well, this concludes my PvE Sorcerer guide for TERA. As I mentioned in the intro, this is how I play the class, which doesn't mean that my playstyle is perfect. If you play the class this way, you will already do decent damage. But if you're an experienced sorcerer and you found anything in this video that you think I'm doing wrong, then let me know about it in the comments below and I will try it out. If you have any questions or other comments, those are welcome as well, of course. Leave a like if this video was helpful and subscribe for more. Since we're already on the topic, at the moment of recording this, my channel is getting close to 600 subscribers. That is so amazing. I never thought so many people would subscribe. Thank you all for your support, I appreciate it a lot. Anyway, I'll see you in the next one. Have a nice day, bye.